If you're looking for a high quality, affordable action camera, then you may have come to the right space. Let's talk about the DJI Osmo Action. The Osmo Action was an action camera that was released all the way back in May of 2019. When it was released in May 2019, the price tag was a whopping $349. But since then, that's dropped all the way down to $199. Not only has the price dropped significantly, but through software updates over the years, you're also getting a much better camera at this $199 price point than you would have gotten at the $349 price point. The Osmo Action performs and looks a lot like a GoPro. It has a boxy body, it has a big old lens, it's got a touch screen on the back. Although I do think that the GoPro has a 4x3 touchscreen, this is a 16:9 touchscreen, which means the video can fill the entire screen with no black boxes. It also has a front screen, which at the time was completely new. Now other action cameras do have a front screen. The front screen is a square though, 1.4 inch square, which means there's going to be lots of cropping, black bars, all of those things on that front screen. And you can't really see any detail from the front screen. It's more just used for framing purposes to make sure you have a general sense of where you are in the frame. And finally, the battery. The battery is it's about average for an action camera, about 60 to 90 minutes of use on this camera on a single charge. So you do have to be mindful of your battery if you only have one. I've owned the Osmo Action for a couple of years now, and although I don't bring it on every shoot with me, it does have some advantages over cell phone cameras and even traditional cameras. So let's get into the pros and cons. Starting with the pros. Video. As you would expect from an action camera, the video part of this camera is the strong point. It can shoot in multiple different resolutions, frame rates, even aspect ratios. I'm not going to list those all, but there they are. I think the most impressive thing about this camera is its stabilization. Even for today's standards, this is top-notch stabilization. It's 100% electronic image stabilization. So what this means is that there's no actual moving parts within the camera to stabilize the image. It shoots the video first and is super shaky, but it records data on how exactly the camera bounced around while you were filming. It takes that video and interpreting that data, it cuts off the edges of the video according to the data that it collected to form a nice stable looking shot. They call it rock steady. It has fancy new branding, it has fancy new advertisement, but this is the same stabilization that DJI has used on their drones for a very long time. It does rock. One thing to note, however, is that while you have rock steady on, the shot is a lot more narrow than a GoPro. Personally, as a filmmaker, I prefer this more linear look to my footage. If you're looking for an action camera, ultra wide style looking shot, this Osmo Action can't do that. You're better off with a GoPro at that point. Another surprising strength in this camera is the picture profile. It has a picture profile. They call it D-Cine-like. What a picture profile is it's exactly the image that hits the sensor with absolutely zero edits whatsoever. So it comes out looking very flat, very bland, and it's the editor's job to add that color back in to make it look like it looked in real life. And then it's a bigger file than the standard profile, so it gives you more cushion, more leeway to be able to edit, to be able to color the footage to make it look exactly the way you want it to look, instead of just hoping that the standard profile and its automatic edits do what you want it to do. Having a picture profile on a $200 camera is a bargain. I can't stress this enough. There's so many cameras out there that cost a lot more than $200 that just don't have any picture profiles. Profiles. Slow motion is also a strength of this camera. Sort of. It's silky smooth as long as you have something like a tripod to put it on. It can shoot up to 240 frames per second in slow motion. It does have its standard electronic image stabilization in all of these, But once you pass 60 frames per second, you don't have rock steady anymore. So you'll need a tripod at that point or something steady to set it on. It has some surprisingly useful video modes. I'm not one that really likes all these preset modes. I sort of like to do it myself, even though it does take more time. You do have more control over it and you get to make it look exactly the way you want it. But these, the time-lapse and the hyperlapse are two modes that I actually do use on this camera. Usually these are things that I like to control manually, either by manually changing the speed of a video that I shot or by piecing together photos that I shot, but that takes time. And having these preset modes, although they give you a little bit of a lower quality version of what you would have got had you done it manually, it gives it to you just like that, instantly. So there is a trade-off, but I use it all the time, especially if I'm shooting vlogs or something that I need to get out that day. There's not much impressive about the photo department, but there are a couple of bright spots, so let's go over those. It can shoot RAW photos. A RAW photo is sort of the same thing as a picture profile, but it's in photo form. So it gives you more leeway to edit the photo. It's shot in DNG format, which is the same format that a lot of cell phones that can shoot RAW photos, they shoot in DNG format as well. It can also shoot interval photos anywhere from, I think, every half second all the way up to every 125 seconds. And this is really good if you're trying to shoot a time lapse and you want each individual photo to be able to edit and manipulate while you're putting it frame by frame to create a nice looking time lapse. Now the cons, we're gonna stick in the photo department because, as you'd expect, photos are the weak point of an action camera. It's just on par with a cell phone. Pretty much what you would expect from the wide angle lens of a cell phone, that's what this camera can give you. Although it does give you a little bit more control over your photos depending on what smartphone you're using. The touchscreen, definitely a weak point of this camera. It's not a great touchscreen. I consistently have mishaps, and on an action camera that you might be needing to turn on and record right away, it sucks that you can't edit the settings as fast as you would like. I understand this might just be user error. I might just be bad at the touchscreen. There might be plenty of people out there that are great at using this touchscreen. For me personally, it's usable, but it's not on the same level as what you'd expect from, say, a smartphone touchscreen that's pretty reliable at this point. Maybe the biggest weakness is the screen delay. So, as I said before, there's lots of processing going on every second when you're using Rocksteady. The trade-off of that is that the screen is delayed by just a fraction of a second. So as you're recording, if you're recording a moving subject and you're only looking at the screen, you're gonna fall behind that subject because the screen is delayed a little bit behind real life. This has been improved a lot through software updates. They've cut down the delay by a lot, but it's still there. You still notice it. It still affects your recording. And the audio. Audio can only go so far in small cameras. The microphone in these cameras can only be so big. It's sort of the same as a cell phone, maybe a little bit better in terms of noise reduction because there are microphones on multiple sides of the camera. So it's very rare that every microphone is being hit by wind at the same time. It's decent if you're able to repair the audio a little bit in post-production. If you don't want to do that, it's about what you'd expect from a cell phone. People will hear you, what you're saying, they'll be able to hear mostly. That's about it. And finally, low light. This seems sort of obvious with a tiny camera, but I still gotta say it. This is an action camera. Don't use it in low light. That's it. That's about it for this camera. Some final thoughts for the DJI Osmo Action. It's not a do-it-all camera. This should not be the first camera that you buy. Even cell phone cameras these days have multiple lenses. They can shoot at multiple focal lengths. They're just more dynamic than an action camera. An action camera should not be the first camera that you buy. However, once you have your main camera locked in, once you like the main camera that you have, that's when you can buy an action camera to complement your main camera, to be able to get more immersive shots, more unique shots that you can't get with a traditional camera or a cell phone camera. You can get with an action camera. That's where this guy comes in, because at $200, this is a bargain, because it still competes with today's action cameras of 2021. So that's it for today's review of the DJI Osmo Action. I hope you found this useful. I know these videos are too short to go over every single aspect of this camera, so if you have questions, ask me in the comments and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you again.